All right, well, hello everybody and welcome to the Montchard Museum of Science. My name is Marcos Staffney. I'm the executive director for the museum, and we're really delighted for all of you to be here for our Third Plus talk, which is a talk series devoted to our newest visiting exhibition, Human Plus, Real Lives Plus Real Engineers. The exhibition tells compelling stories of engineers and users who design and use technologies to help themselves and others achieve their goals, from everyday routines to lifelong dreams. This evening's conversation focuses on the Real Lives Plus Real Engineers part of the Human Plus exhibition. Now, last week we had a very special guest named Dr. Michael Mayer, who is both a doctor and an engineer. And when he heard that this evening's presentation was going to be about adaptive sports, he had to drive over and bring me one of his legs. He is a pretty ingenious engineer and showed me this thing, which is very weird to get sometimes when you just come to work and someone hands you a leg. I have a small video of, we'll just pretend Dr. Mayer is there. He couldn't be here this evening, but in presence there. We have a short video of him explaining his leg that I'd like to show you. Let's see if we can get to it.
So what we have here is a construct that I put together in order to use in the river water kayaking. This is a suspension belt made of cast-off conveyor belting that I found on the White River. This is a supplementary suspension belt made of a dog collar. This is an above-knee socket which I acquired from a generous family of a woman who was deceased. The aluminum cylinder is from a modified carding roller from the woolen mill, and this rubber tip is a terminal device for an above-knee limb that I got from a colleague of mine on the West Coast.
And what were you using it for?
I was using it for kayaking, so I could bring my boat off the car down to the river, get into the river and paddle, and then get out of the kayak and bring my kayak back up from the river to the bank so that we could put it back on the car.
And why would you use this leg instead of your normal prosthesis?
This leg is devised so that it has no ill effects from being totally immersed in the water, which can't be said of my varsity leg, my first string prosthetic.
You don't want to hear Michael Jackson. Just a second here. So aside from being an engineer and a doctor, Michael is also a kayaker, and he wanted to build something that would allow him to do what it is that he wants to do. There are many engineers working with various users to help them achieve their aspirations, whether it be for play and for big things and small things. So everybody is different, or every body is different, right? Adaptive sports equipment gives athletes options as unique as they are. In the Everybody Plays exhibition, in the Human Plus exhibit, the story of champion wheelchair racer Kanya Sesser is told. During the development of the Human Plus exhibition, Kanya wanted to have a custom engineered monoski with a seat molded to fit her perfectly. A higher seat would make getting on and off a ski lift easier, provide advanced handling, and generally boost her confidence. Individually engineered equipment can allow people to expand their abilities, but there are already a lot of on-market opportunities today. The prosthetic ice climbing foot has special spikes that allow it to grip the ice firmly. Along with the other climbing equipment, like an ice axe, the foot helps the climber move safely on a steep, icy wall. This prosthetic basketball hand helps a player easily control the ball while dribbling, shooting, or passing to a teammate. Its shape matches the shape of the basketball and has raised friction discs that help a player grip the ball. This hand-cranked mountain bike is designed to take advantage of a cyclist's upper body strength. Knobby tires provide traction on dirt, gravel, and mud. So today with us to talk about people, sports, and adaptive technologies is Maggie Burke, the Managing Director of Vermont Adaptive Ski and Sports. Maggie graduated from Green Mountain College with a degree in adventure recreation and has her master's degree in adventure education with an emphasis on adaptive sports. Maggie's an adaptive ski instructor, a wilderness EMT, a volunteer EMT for a community, and a Leave No Trace trainer. So if everyone can welcome Maggie Burke.
So I want to thank the Montshire for having us here. It's really cool to have adaptive sports displayed in a museum like this. I work for Vermont Adaptive Ski and Sports. Is that the right way? Our mission is to empower individuals with disabilities. We promote independence and further equality through access and instruction to sports and recreational activities. Who we serve? We do about 3,000 adaptive sports activities on an annual basis. We work with people with cognitive, developmental, physical, and emotional behavioral disabilities. So someone with spinal cord injury can participate with us, someone with visual impairment, Down syndrome, autism, anyone who wouldn't fit into a typical ski school is who we serve. Ski school or in terms of any recreation programming. The different programs that we do include alpine and Nordic skiing, snowshoeing, rock climbing, paddling, sailing, cycling, beeper baseball, hiking and camping, and eco-able adventures. We have an environmental focus for some of our programs. Tonight I'm going to talk a lot about skiing. It's one of the programs that we do with all of these other programs. It's just a small percentage of what we're doing. And it's what we're most known for, so it's something we sometimes struggle with, is sharing with people that we do more than just skiing. We have locations throughout the state, so for ski resorts, we're at Fulton Valley, Pico, and Sugar Bush Resort. We've got a program location on the waterfront in Burlington, where we're doing our sailing and biking and paddling. We also travel. We've got vans and trailers, and we'll go to different state parks and meet up with a group of participants with a different disability to participate in the sports that we offer. So how we do it, independence is our ultimate goal. When someone comes to participate with us, our goal is for them to leave our program and be able to participate on their own or along with their family members. So when someone comes in to our office and says, hey, we're just out going skiing today, we've really met our ultimate goal. And we want to use the least amount of technology possible in order to get folks out on the hill. A quick history of adaptive skiing. I found this video that I love. Probably 20 or 30 years old, would be my guess. Maybe less, I don't know what the year is on it, but it shows kind of the origins of what adaptive skiing used to look like. It's a little scary to watch, I apologize. But this is essentially a toboggan that someone's in with these sticks with spikes on them. You can see how he's kind of using friction to steer himself down the hill while someone kind of haphazardly skis behind him. I'm not sure who's tethering who in that scenario. But it's come a long way since this. Really, adaptive sports got its big start right after the Vietnam War. Folks were coming back with amputations and were wanting to get back out on the hill. And Outriggers, which I'll chat about later, gave folks that opportunity. And from there, lots of ingenious people have come up with different adaptations and yeah, get terrifying. It's really good for your back, I think. But I don't think there's a shock on that one either. So they've come up with a lot of really ingenious designs to be able to get folks out. Yeah.
No helmets back then, huh?
Yeah, of course, yeah, silly. All right. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of talk through the most I'm pointing the wrong way. There we go. The most adaptation to the least adaptation. So, for example, skis themselves have had a lot of adaptation, or have had a lot of improvements over the last few years. So remember when skis were like this tall and straight? Over the years, they've come up with more of a curved design, which allows them to turn easier. They've gotten shorter. We've gone from leather boots to plastic boots, which are warmer, stiffer, easier to ski. So here's an example of someone being guided who's blind. So sometimes we're teaching on a piece of equipment. Other times it's just changing the way that we teach. So for this person who's visually impaired, we might use radios and give the person instructions of how to turn. Hold, 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 left turn. hold, right turn. We're coming to a steep pitch in a little bit, and you're just talking in that person's ear. When they're learning how to ski, we might use a bamboo pole with 2 instructors on either side so they could feel how to ski, or 2 poles underneath someone's arms to teach them how to ski. Some other adaptations we have for a stand-up skier would be something we call tip clamps. And these can actually attach right to the tips of skis, and we can attach tethers or ropes to these 2 different pieces and ski behind and control someone's speed. Some of the reasons we might use these is because someone doesn't have the coordination or motor skills to be able to make their skis go in that wedge. Another reason might be that we tether them, that they don't have the decision-making ability to decide when it's safe to turn or not to turn. So we're there with the ability to help control that a little bit. So the majority, I'd say about half of the participants that we work with are using just typical ski equipment with a little bit of change in the way that we teach. Someone with a developmental disability, autism, Down syndrome. We say to new volunteers all the time that teach our lessons, your whole first day could be nothing but putting boots on. And that might be a really great, wonderful day of putting boots on. And then the next lesson, maybe you'll put boots and skis on. Our priorities, we do safety first, fun second, learn and progress third. And so in terms of our program, if we're having a great day and ending on a positive note, we've had a successful day. Snowboarding. So we definitely have folks that want to snowboard. It's popular in our field. We have folks that might snowboard with traumatic brain injuries, or a veteran with post-traumatic stress disorder might come and snowboard with us. A child with a developmental or adult with a developmental disability. There's some adaptations for snowboards. There's a clamp, just like the tip clamps, that you can tether from behind. And there's not as much quite out there right now for adaptive snowboarding, but there's people coming up with stuff on a daily basis, I can guarantee it. So here's those tip clamps in action and someone getting tethered from the tip clamps. So the next one would be 3-tracking. And I've got this athlete on the right here is Vasu. He was in Banff Film Festival this last year with a great video. He was an intern at Vermont Adaptive. But someone can have these 2 outriggers. These are too tall for me. But they can stand on one leg and have the 2 outriggers. And they can either be in standing position, so you can push yourself forward, or you can put them down by pulling these strings up into ski position. And I'm going to encourage all of you at the end of the night to come play with all these things and check them out. The outriggers will come up a little bit more later on, but they allow someone to have that balance as they're making their turns. So 3-track is the number of tracks we leave in the snow. So if you imagine a person with 1 leg and 2 outriggers, they're going to leave 3 tracks in the snow. If someone's an able-bodied stand-up skier, we call them a 2-tracker. So here's a 4-tracker. So someone maybe with some weakness in their body might use 2 outriggers and 2 skis to ski. The outriggers just help provide some more stabilization. And that person can ski independently with those 2 outriggers. Someone with an incomplete spinal cord injury or multiple sclerosis, there's many different disabilities that might use that type of equipment. The next one is the snow slider. And this one's really cool. Like, Marcus, you might want to push me a bit, maybe right up here. Yeah. So the snow slider is a walker on skis, and I might just leave it down here. So essentially, this piece of equipment attaches right into 2 skis, and I would have skis on myself while I'm skiing on it, and it would be tethered by an instructor behind it. I had a really great story with this one where I went to Mad River Glen, and if any of you are familiar with Mad River Glen, they don't groom a whole lot, they don't make snow, it's all bumps. And it was a kindergarten class with probably 15 kids, and one of the kids used a wheelchair but could walk short distances. And we decided to bring the snow slider. We can switch out legs so it's shorter, and we can put on kids' skis. It's really adaptable. And this kid and I went out, and we got them on the snow slider. We did a couple runs on the tow rope, and they were doing a great job. We said, well, let's get on the chairlift. And we went up, and this kid, all their peers were going, how come they get to ride the chairlift and we're flopping around on the bunny hill? And for once, this kid got the opportunity to be the shining star in their class. And as we were going down, they were screaming, I'm a fire truck, the whole way down. And everybody was cheering, and I was crying. It was just one of those moments where this piece of equipment really gave that kid such a positive experience to get out and ski. and kick their peers' butts, which is, we love that. So I really love this piece of equipment. The downside to this piece of equipment, when we're talking about independence, is it always has to be tethered. So someone can make the choice to always ski with another person and use a snow slider, or there's other pieces of equipment we can use, whether it's as they get stronger for tracking, or if they want to use a sit ski, they can do that later on. There's different options for folks. So once someone's in one piece of equipment, it doesn't mean that they can't switch to others. So a monoski. So this is Stephen Lawler. He's a guy who started skiing with our program at Sugarbush and is now a Paralympic athlete competing on a global level. So it's really cool to have seen him go from just a little peanut to now this guy who's racing on a global level. He's in a monoski, and a monoski is, if I talk about it from the top down, I think I can get it up here. So when someone comes for their first sit ski lesson, we spend about half the first day just fitting them in the equipment. We want the ski to fit them almost like a ski boot. So we want their seat, this plastic bucket, to fit them well. We'll use pieces of foam that we have all over the place that we'll stuff in there to make sure there's no pressure points. And we've got different buckets, is what we call them, that we'll switch out between the different monoskis. And then this foot plate can come in and out depending on how tall someone is. And then we have to decide where they are on the ski. So if someone's a double amputee, you can imagine that their weight's going to be way farther back here than someone who's paraplegic and has their legs, the weight of their legs. So we balance the ski forward or backward on the ski. It's got a shock. I always compare it to a motorcycle shock. So based on how heavy someone is, we can adjust that shock. And then the binding, you can see, is a little bit different. This binding doesn't release, because obviously we don't want our skiers to be releasing out of their bindings while they're skiing. So here's a monoski. And I've got a video here. This is a camp that we hosted about 3 weeks ago at Sugarbush. And it just gives some pretty good footage of people monoskiing.
Mount Ellen with Vermont Adaptive Ski and Sports and the High Fives Foundation.
This week, Sugarbush is hosting a U.S. Paralympic race camp sponsored by the High Fives Foundation and Vermont Adaptive Ski and Sports for athletes with spinal cord injuries.
And Coach Chris Devlin Young has the longest winning streak in U.S. Alpine history and is sharing his experience with 12 athletes from around the East Coast.
We're going to visit with Chris and some of the athletes participating in the camp, and we're going to introduce you to some of the great work that both Vermont Adaptive and the High Fives Foundation is doing on behalf of athletes with disabilities.
Check it out.
There's so many people out skiing today without any direction that maybe want to go into racing or maybe just want to be better skiers. So what is a better skier? What's in your mind, what's a better skier? So individually, I'm challenging them during this time to answer that question for themselves. So every single one of these guys is already, this is only our second morning, already improved tremendously.
This is my first time going through gates, and it was definitely an eye-opening experience. Usually on the ski hill, you can turn where you want to, you have your own plan, do what you want to do. And in this case, obviously, it's a set plan. It's a mental game as well as a physical game. And it was cool because you got to go faster, you got to turn harder, and you really got to trust your instincts. And it definitely gives you goosebumps, and it's quite the adrenaline rush, and it's the best feeling in the world when you get down.
Anyone at Vermont Adaptive participates regardless of ability to pay. The athletes that are here this week aren't paying a penny to be here, and they're receiving coaching that is at such an elite level. So without the partnership between High Fives and Vermont Adaptive, that wouldn't be possible for these athletes.
One more time, sure that if someone wants to achieve things in adaptive sports, that they have the funding that they need. So working with organizations like Vermont Adaptive, we're able to provide the best training, the best learning how to re-engage in adaptive sports after suffering injury through partnerships with people like Vermont Adaptive. Fat Ski-a-thon, largest fundraiser.
All right, that ski-a-thon already happened. Turn it off there. So as you can see, the folks that are using these mono skis can load and unload the chairlift independently. They can go out skiing with their buddies without any assistance whatsoever. The next piece of equipment I'm going to chat about is the Bi-Unique. And this piece of equipment is for someone who might have less balance or a higher level spinal cord injury. So the ability to navigate using a mono ski or be able to balance themselves is not quite as there as a mono skier. So the Bi-Unique can still be skied independently. It's lower to the ground, as you can see. I'm going to pick it up here. But the difference is it's got two skis, so bi, two, mono, one. And these skis are pretty cool. They actually articulate on their own as you tip the ski. And I'd encourage you to come check it out when we're done chatting. We have these in all different sizes. All the skis go from a kiddo size all the way up to an adult. And this piece of equipment can be tethered. So the mono ski, when you teach someone, you generally teach them without a tether. You can have a tether to help with balance, but someone's really out there learning on their own. This piece of equipment, an instructor can ski behind with two tethers and help someone initiate their turns. Folks will either have a handheld outrigger, like this one, just like the stand-up outrigger, same design, or they can have fixed outriggers. And so two pieces of equipment we have, the Mountain Man and the Bi-Unique, have fixed outriggers. So someone can actually turn this ski by leaning their head and their body weight with the assistance of an instructor behind them. In terms of getting on the chairlift, that's the question we always get. This actually has a pump on it. So you pop this forward and then you can hoist them right up. And so if it's someone heavy, that helps save the instructor's back as they load them. And you'd have an instructor on either side, and they would lift them up onto the chairlift before they go skiing. And then the chair actually comes right around and grabs that wire and lowers it back down. So when they get off, it's ready to go. Same thing with the padding and the foam and everything that we use to get someone really comfortable in the seat or bucket. Yeah, and then the last one that I'm going to chat about is the Mountain Man. So there's someone in a Mountain Man with their own handheld outriggers. Sorry for all the shuffling. So this one is someone who has no use of their, or limited use of their arms and their legs. We can get someone out skiing in this. And it's kind of a comfier ride than the Bi-Unique. It's got a little bit of a shock. And you can see these fixed outriggers. So if someone turns the ski, they can catch that outrigger on the snow, whereas the instructor facilitates from behind. So we've got, a hand, just a bar for folks to hold on to. They can hold on to outriggers. We have some outriggers with just balls on the end of them so someone can practice that movement. But there's all sorts of different ways that we can accommodate. We can even have one fixed outrigger and one handheld outrigger for someone who might be hemiplegic or use half their body. So all sorts of different, every person's different, as Marco said. And so every piece of equipment, when they come in, we really look at what we're gonna do with that person. There's a person with fixed outriggers. And that's it. That's all I've got.
I'm going to leave with a couple of questions. Great, and you have such amazing things here. So I'm sure some folks in the audience might be interested in just hearing how you personally got involved with skiing sport, and also how other people might be able to get involved, either as a participant or as someone who might help lead these types of activities.
Yeah, great question. I did an internship with Vermont Adaptive. When they interviewed me, they said, do you have any experience with people with disabilities? And I said, absolutely not. I didn't really, I was interested to learn, and then I kind of thought about it. It turns out I've got an uncle who has a spinal cord injury. I have a grandma who's an amputee. I have all these people in my family that have disabilities, but I never considered it. But Vermont Adaptive works with volunteers, and so anyone who's interested in volunteering can absolutely get on our website and fill out an application. Participants, like I said in the video, anyone can participate regardless of ability to pay. We have a scholarship form, or a scholarship program, and year-round we've got activities going on. So if someone's interested in something and they get in touch, we'll help figure it out. Even if it's one of those sports, a sport that I don't have listed up there, we oftentimes get questions, and we're able to point people in those different ways.
Well, so speaking of that, the slide up there is a sport that you didn't talk about today, right?
Yeah.
So you mentioned that one of your big goals is to get folks to know that it's not just skiing, right?
Yeah.
So what else is there that you offer?
Yeah, so speaking of mountain bikes, we just bought a whole trailer full of adaptive mountain bikes. Actually, I think the exact model of this one. And we're gonna be traveling around the East Coast with a trailer to different programs and able to get folks out mountain biking, we're gonna be the first program, I think, on the East Coast doing a mountain bike program, which we're really excited about. And we've got all sorts of friends around the East Coast. One of the things I didn't mention in the presentation that I wanted to say is that when ADA passed in 1990, it required that different recreation facilities have access to people with disabilities within their program. So just about any ski mountain that you go to will have some sort of adaptive program or recreation facility for the most part. That being said, it's not always perfect, but there's lots of great programs throughout the nation that provide adaptive sports.
Right, and these things aren't cheap, right? So
No.
when we think about, I can go buy a bike, and maybe spend, I can go to Walmart and buy a $200 bike, I
Right.
can go to a slightly nicer bike shop and buy a $500 bike and use that for a long time. What is something like this? range?
Sure. Yeah, so a bike like that costs around $7,200. These skis are around $5,000, anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. And folks, it's a pretty common misconception. People say, oh, well, don't they give them to you for free because you guys do such great things? It's like, well, no, we're their main market. So we're who buys it. And so we're able, and for individual athletes, the High Fives Foundation is a great example. Kelly Brush Foundation is right here in Vermont. There's the Challenged Athletes Foundation. Individual athletes can apply for equipment to get grants. And then for us, it's just seeking donors and people to give financially in order to purchase the fleet of equipment that we have.
Now, I talked a little bit in the beginning about the champion wheelchair racer who wanted a custom molded seat. And
Right.
so how does that change the sort of makeup of what happens on one of these?
A custom seat?
Right.
Yeah, so someone who's getting a custom seat probably has their own piece of equipment. There's different companies that make these $500 custom, beautiful seats for themselves. But yeah, I guess it's once a person gets to that independent level, they're gonna be getting a piece of equipment that fits them perfectly. And as someone gets better and better at skiing, they tend to wanna go get their own equipment because they know where it's being used and that it hasn't been moved from how they had it. So yeah, there's all sorts of adaptations for how they transport that equipment and all that sort of stuff.
So we've talked about skiing and biking and materials and technologies that are for folks with limited mobilities.
Sure.
But let's talk about folks who have cognitive or developmental disabilities. What are some of the adaptations that you might use for folks like that on a ski course or on hiking or trails?
Sure, there's all sorts of different techniques we use. We've got a ton of special educators, thank goodness, that volunteer for our program, which makes a huge difference because they're bringing techniques they use in the classroom to the ski hill and having fun with it. But an example might be if someone has a hard time determining left from right, we've got mittens that go over mittens that are red or green. So you can say, turn to your green side, turn to your right side. Or it might be coming up, having an autism quiet room. So having the facility available so that a participant can go and have quiet time if they need it, away from the hustle and bustle of the office. So that it's all in just teaching techniques or making a list of what we're gonna do on our ski lesson for the day so that someone understands what the plan is and we can stick to that plan.
So what, in your experience of having done, imagine countless or hundreds or thousands of these types of experiences, what's been one of the more difficult scenarios that you've been put into?
Gosh, that's a good question. I don't know, I guess the difficult, it's more looking, I don't know. I tend to like the more difficult lessons, when you're looking for that creative way to teach someone that someone might consider difficult. I see it as more of a challenge and something fun. So I'm trying to think of a good example of a difficult lesson.
you mentioned about, you know, your experience here with a child and that being one of the most exceptional experiences. Is there another experience like that, or is that almost every time?
Oh, there's so many. I mean, every single day there's one of those experiences. You know, we have, I'm trying to think of, so an example would be a woman in this video that we showed. She was a professional snowboarder, and she was injured while snowboarding, competing, and she got a spinal cord injury, so she was paraplegic, so she had limited use of her legs, and she started skiing with the Paralympics in Aspen, and she then was injured actually while she was using a monoski, was injured and broke her neck at C5. And so I got an email from her saying, you know, I want to come to this camp, but I haven't been back in my ski since I got my injury. And I was like, oh man, this is going to be a hard day. You know, she was really nervous to go out and try it again. And she ended up coming out and getting back in her ski, and the smile on her face was just phenomenal. It was amazing to see her get back out and be on her ski and skiing and with her friends. And so it's a pretty cool experience. I feel like every day I've got like tears, you know, from just the positive, you know, having parents come in and say, you know, I don't know if my kid's going to be able to do this. I have a hard time with my kid in the supermarket, let alone out on the ski hill. And they get out there and watching the parents watch their kid come down skiing, you know, gives you goosebumps to watch someone really have that success and provide that success for people. You know, being able to facilitate. Our volunteers are amazing, and they, you know, work so hard and are, you know, lifting sit skis and putting boots on all day, and for them to come in and say, you know, I just have the best day, and I don't ski for myself anymore. I come and I volunteer. So those are really great moments for us to see people succeed and be independent.
That's great.
Yeah.
We're going to open it up to the audience now for questions so that we can save a little bit of time for everybody to try out and sort of move these around as well. But I see we have a question right there already.
You're talking about kids and watching parents, and so many of the stories that you showed and the stories upstairs in the exhibit, you know, they're these young kind of adrenaline sports. What is that age range, and how do you work with that older audience as well?
Yeah, we work with anyone from 3 to 99. You know, someone's got the ability to, you know, we definitely have essential eligibility criteria, so someone has to be able to sustain a fall ski, because skiing is dangerous. We can't take the risk out of skiing. So if someone has a disability that falling while skiing is going to be an issue, then we definitely have a conversation with them, maybe about different activities they can try, like paddling or sailing. But we'll work with just about any age.
Is there an application, or what's the process to become involved in this as a participant?
Yeah, as a participant, you can go right to our website and you can fill out what we call a client profile. And what that does is it gives us all sorts of information about the disability that we might be working with. And then you just, you know, pick your dates and what activity you want to do and where you want to do it, and we go out.
And are there certain areas that facilitate these various handicaps and I have to shout and talk here. Are there various areas that facilitate that, you know, are on that website that I can go and see what's closest to my home and?
Exactly. Yeah, you can go right to our website and see a map of where we're offering programming. Yeah, and it depends on where you live. And so if you want to chat with me afterwards, we can definitely talk about what would be the best program for you.
What would be the cost to participate? How is that handled?
That's a great question. So like I said, we've got list rates for our programming. So for example, a half day of paddling is $35. A half day of skiing is $90, which includes lesson, lift ticket, and equipment. But from there, we do sliding scale. So someone can say, here's what I can afford to pay, and we offer a certain amount of scholarship per program. So, you know, we have these list rates, but we're always flexible in making sure that people get out and have the opportunity to play outside.
You gotta have some snow to go with it.
Exactly, yeah, that's been tough this year. And actually, Marcos, if I could, there's a bunch of people in the room who have adaptive sports experience.
Sure.
Those magical stories that I wasn't able to share right on the spot. Does anybody have one off the top of their head that they could share on the spot? I know there's a bunch of people who volunteer or work with programs in the room. Anybody?
Why don't you tell them about Kids of Courage?
Yeah, that was cool. Thanks, Dad. cool experience. We had 30 kids with terminal illnesses come skiing at Sugar Bush, and they were all from New York City. And that was an incredible day. It was kind of terrifying, not knowing, the disabilities they had were relatively severe. We had respirators and ventilators and doctors and EMTs, and it was a full day of skiing with a group of just amazing kiddos that we got out on the hill. It was an incredibly rewarding day, but at the same time, absolutely terrifying as we were talking to the doctors and the EMTs and facilities. And of course, it was a day that was like -10 degrees out. So we had kids in sleeping bags in their sit skis going out, which was pretty neat. So that was a great day.
If someone's looking to get, let's say they've not been an outdoors person, right, and the benefits of being outdoors is so great, what's the toe dip into being outdoors, or the first thing that you might recommend for somebody who's not been outside for a while?
Yeah, we do things like biking on the Burlington Bike Path. So someone can show up and we can go 200 yards and bike, or same thing with paddling. We go paddling on a lot of just small lakes, so someone can be in a kayak and there's an instructor walking next to them in that kayak versus going, the vision might be I'm going out of Lake Champlain and the waves, and where it can just be a really mellow experience. Same thing with skiing, it's all, when someone comes in, we talk about goals, and if their goal is to ride the magic carpet independently, that's great, and we won't push them beyond what they want to do.
Any more questions?
Beaver baseball?
Beaver baseball, that's a great question. Beaver baseball is awesome. It's for kids and adults who have visual impairments or who are blind. So what we do is we've got a tee with a baseball on it that beeps, and there's 2 bases that make 2 different noises. So everybody is blindfolded so that it's an equal playing field. And you've got your outfielders and you've got your batters. So the batter hits the ball, and one of the 2 bases beeps or makes a noise that the person has to run to. It's this big foam piece of, foam, kind of like what you guys have upstairs. And they run to that base, and if someone in the outfield picks up the ball before the person hits the base, they're out. And so one of the fun things we've done, we worked with the Division for the Blind and Visually Impaired in Vermont, and we'll go to different state parks, and we've actually played a group of kids with visual impairments versus a Little League baseball team. And generally the kids who are blind kick their butts, which is awesome to have happen, and we appreciate that. So.
Well, thank you so much for speaking with us this evening. I think now what we'll do is turn the lights up a little bit higher, and if you'd like to come out and take a look at some of this equipment, Maggie, and I know we have a number, raise your hand if you're a volunteer with some of this equipment in this room. A couple of folks around, so they might be able to answer some questions too, as we come right back up over here. So thank you so much for coming this evening. Next week, we've got Adam Pierce from the Love Your Brain Foundation who's going to be talking about bodies and balance. We're really excited to have him here next week, and this will be a really exciting moment to talk about some of the services that Love Your Brain Foundation does within the Upper Valley and beyond with yoga and meditation. All right, thank you so much. Have a great night, everybody.